The creature was already there when Liam looked up, standing in the tree line, holding a camera pointed straight at them. No sound, no breath. Just that black shape between the pines, recording every move. A tiny red light blinked once, then again, like it was marking them. The air tightened. Miran whispered Liam's name, but the creature tilted its head first, almost like it understood her tone better than he did. Its long arms shifted, adjusting the camcorder with slow, steady hands. Too steady, not human steady. The wind died at the same moment, as if the forest didn't want to interrupt. Something clicked from the trees, not from them. A soft shudder, matching the blink of the creature's light. Another set of eyes, another camera. The thing stepped forward, and its camera tracked with perfect glide, like it had rehearsed this moment. Liam felt it immediately. This wasn't a threat acting wild. This was a mind studying them, watching for a reaction, waiting for the right one. Why did its eyes recognize him? The creature didn't move again, but something in the air made both of them back away. The forest felt heavier now, like the night had arrived early just to watch. Liam kept his phone raised, recording, though he wasn't sure why. The silence pressed against their ears. Miran whispered that they should pack up, but Liam couldn't stop staring at the creature's camera. It wasn't pointed at the camp anymore. It was focused on their faces, adjusting in tiny mechanical shifts, the way a machine tries to stay locked on a target. Then another click echoed from deeper in the woods. Not loud, not close, but in the same rhythm. Liam felt the ground tilt in his stomach. Whatever was behind the creature wasn't hiding from it. It was signaling, and the creature was answering by standing perfectly still. They tried to pretend it wasn't happening. They gathered the loose gear, kept their eyes low, acted like two people who absolutely were not being filmed by something without a face. But the creature adjusted its grip every time they moved. Its camera followed them like a slow, patient predator. Miran whispered that it was learning them, step by step, breath by breath. Liam tried to ignore the cold sweat sliding down his back. The soft clicking sound came again, a few seconds apart, always from a different direction, like a circle tightening. Miran finally held her voice steady enough to ask if they should run. Liam didn't answer. He was watching the creature's eyes. They weren't focused on him anymore. They were focused somewhere behind him. The light thinned to a dull gray as clouds pulled over the sky. Liam felt the pressure in the air, the kind that comes before a storm or something worse. The watcher stepped sideways now, tracing a narrow curve, not toward them but around them. Maureen grabbed his arm, pulling him back from the tree line, her voice tight with warning. Liam kept expecting the creature to lunge or scream or rush forward, but instead it recorded each step like it was documenting a rare animal. Another quiet click answered from the darkness. Then another. Liam realized these weren't echoes. They were responses. Miran whispered that there were more than one. That's when Liam noticed the forest didn't look empty anymore. Shadows were stacking, filling in the gaps between the trunks. Liam finally said they needed to leave. No hesitation, no plan. Just get away. They grabbed what they could and started backing toward the trail, never turning their backs on the thing watching them. The creature didn't follow. It only recorded. Its body swayed subtly, like it was thinking or listening to instructions from somewhere else. Miran kept her light in her hand, thumb hovering on the switch. Liam heard another click, this time closer, sharper, almost beside them. Miran's breath caught. A branch snapped off to their right, and both of them jerked toward the sound. When they looked back, the creature lowered its camera slightly. Not threatening, not attacking. Almost warning, and the forest behind it suddenly felt alive. They made it only a few steps down the trail before the forest changed again. The air picked up a strange vibration. Soft at first, then rising like distant machinery buried under the soil. Liam kept glancing behind them, expecting the creature to be following, but the clearing stayed empty. Maren whispered that the sound wasn't coming from behind at all. It was coming from above. The leaves trembled without wind, tiny quivers spreading down the branches like something moving through them. Then the vibration stopped, completely, a dead pause that made their ears ring. Liam lifted his phone to check the recording, but the screen flashed to static for a second before returning to normal. Maren grabbed his sleeve and pointed to the dirt. Footprints. Not theirs. Fresh. Deep, circling the path like something had walked around them while they were still looking at the watcher. Liam crouched to see them closer, but the soil was still settling, like the last step had been taken seconds ago. They hurried down the path in silence, trying not to draw attention to themselves, but the forest refused to let them blend in. Every few steps, Maren heard a faint whistle. High, thin, almost familiar. Liam didn't believe her until it happened again, this time matching the small tune she always used to call him back to camp when they filmed together. The sound came from ahead, then behind, then right next to her ear. She spun, but nothing stood there. Liam grabbed her shoulders, steadying her before she fell. The whistle came one last time, and this time, Liam recognized it too. Not perfect, slightly off, like someone trying to copy a sound they had only heard once. They pushed forward faster, but the forest closed in tighter, the path narrowing with shadows that didn't belong to trees. Liam tried to speak but stopped when his phone vibrated. A new video file. He hadn't recorded anything. The thumbnail showed the two of them walking. From behind, Liam opened the video, but the screen stayed black for a second before a faint outline appeared. It showed them walking just moments earlier, but the camera was much closer than the figure Maren saw. Too close. Whoever filmed it had been only a few feet behind them. Liam stopped walking. Maren grabbed his arm, begging him not to freeze. But he couldn't shake the image of the camera's angle. It wasn't shot from human height. It was lower, almost at waist level. The video ended with a single frame of the ground, like the camera had been dropped or pulled away fast. Then a click sounded from the opposite side of the trail, deeper than before, almost metallic. Maren pointed into the brush where the sound came from, but there was nothing but tangled branches. Liam lifted his light, and every branch leaned slightly toward him, as if expecting his next move. Thunder rolled somewhere far off, dull and slow, like the storm wasn't sure if it should come closer. Liam whispered that they needed to keep moving no matter what. The path sloped downward, and the air grew colder with every step. Maren kept glancing back even when she didn't hear anything. She said, the trees felt taller now, like the trail was sinking into a deeper part of the forest that didn't match the map. Liam tried to steady his breathing, but something ahead glimmered between the branches. A tiny silver flash, then another. Not lightning, not fireflies, something reflective shifting position. Maren whispered that it looked like a lens catching light. Liam felt a chill run down his spine. The watcher had a camera, but whatever was moving ahead, there were two reflections, side by side, and neither of them blinked. The two reflections dipped out of sight, then reappeared lower, as if something had crouched to observe them from a new angle. Liam whispered for Maren to stay behind him. She refused. The reflections moved again, this time gliding sideways, never rising, never falling, never bouncing like a person walking. Liam fumbled for his light and aimed it ahead. The beam hit empty trunks. Nothing stood there, but the light didn't reach as far as it should have. The darkness swallowed it halfway. Maren tugged his sleeve and pointed to the dirt. More footprints, but these weren't like the earlier ones. These were narrow, precise, almost identical in spacing, like they'd been placed with measured intention. Liam followed them with his eyes until they vanished under a fallen log. He stepped closer to check. Something breathed on the other side. Wet, slow, close. Liam whispered, that whatever was under the log wasn't moving toward them yet, but it was close enough that he could hear the wet drag of its breath. Moran backed up slowly, careful not to snap a twig. The forest felt like a mouth holding its air, waiting. Liam lifted the light higher, and the beam stretched across the trail just long enough to catch a shape shifting behind the trunks. The two silver reflections appeared again, but this time much closer and much higher, like something had risen to full height. Moraine grabbed Liam's hand, whispering that she heard footsteps behind them too. Slow, careful, measured. They both turned at once. The watcher stood at the end of the trail motionless, as if it had been waiting for them to notice. And then it lifted its free hand. Not a threat. A gesture. The exact same gesture Liam had made minutes earlier while trying to calm Marin. Perfectly matched. Perfectly timed, like it had been practicing. Liam felt every muscle stiffen. Marin whispered that it wasn't attacking. It was copying. Studying them like a mirror trying to learn how to breathe. The watcher stepped forward with that slow, controlled glide, raising the camcorder again. Its posture was wrong, but its movements were almost human now, like it had been rehearsing each motion in secret, until it felt confident enough to show them. Liam lifted his hand slowly, trying to see if it would match him again. The creature mirrored him instantly. Every angle perfect. Every motion too smooth. Then a low crack came from the brush behind it, and the watcher jerked its head toward the sound. Not in fear. In recognition, like it already knew what was there. Liam felt the temperature drop, cold washing down the back of his neck. Something else moved in the trees behind the creature. Something larger than before. Marin whispered that they needed to go back the way they came, but Liam couldn't move. The watcher lowered its camera for the first time and angled its head in a slow arc, watching them with something like intent. Then it did something neither of them expected. It took a step back, not forward. Back. Toward the deeper trees, as if placing itself between them and whatever moved behind it. Moran grabbed Liam's wrist, urging him to listen. The forest behind the creature pulsed with tiny vibrations, like something brushing every trunk in a slow wave. Liam heard faint clicks again, not sharp like before, but soft and layered, almost conversational. The watcher responded with a single tilt of its head, repeating the motion exactly once. Moran said it looked like a signal. Liam didn't answer. He had noticed something else. The creature wasn't just mimicking him anymore. It was mimicking the footsteps behind them too. They began retreating slowly, hoping the creature would stay where it was. But the instant they moved, the watcher moved too, copying their retreat with the same number of steps, the same rhythm. Its camcorder angled slightly downward now, no longer watching their bodies but their feet. Moran whispered that it was studying their steps, not their faces. Liam's stomach sank as he realized why. The creature behind it, the one they hadn't fully seen yet, wasn't stepping like them. Its movements were heavier, uneven, dragging through the soil. The watcher kept adjusting its position to match both sets of rhythms at once, like it was trying to tell them which sounds belonged to which shape. Then Liam slipped on a patch of wet dirt, and the instant his foot skidded, the creature imitated the slip, its leg jerking at the same angle, soil scattering even though it didn't fall. The forest grew darker, almost swallowing the last threads of light. Liam steadied himself, breathing hard, while the watcher froze again mid-motion, its imitation stopping as soon as Liam stopped. Marin whispered that it wasn't their enemy. It was reacting to something behind them, something that didn't care about matching any movement. A distant thud echoed from deeper in the woods, followed by a slow dragging sound that tore through the silence. The watcher snapped its head toward the sound, and then looked back at them with a strange urgency. It stepped forward once, just once, and raised its free hand again, but not in mimicry this time. The gesture was sharper, quicker. Warning. Liam grabbed Marin's arm, whispering that they had to run. The forest answered with one more heavy thud, closer now, bending the trees with its weight. They ran until the trail bent sharply, then stopped when the air changed again. Not colder, not warmer, just empty. Every sound dropped at once, leaving a hollow quiet that felt unnatural, like the woods had been drained of life. Marin whispered that she couldn't hear her own footsteps. Liam tried stamping the ground, but the sound vanished before reaching his ears. The silence wasn't normal. It was swallowing things. He checked his phone, hoping for another recording that might explain something. But the screen stayed black for longer than it should have before flickering back on without a signal. Marin clutched his arm, pointing to the path ahead where the trees bent inward, forming a narrow tunnel of branches. Something had moved through here recently. The leaves were still settling as if brushed aside by a fast, heavy shape. Liam whispered that they needed light, but when he clicked on his flashlight, the beam dimmed instantly, shrinking to a dull glow. The forest was taking the sound. Now it was taking the light, too. They moved cautiously into the archway, each step lighter than the last, not because they were trying to be quiet, but because the silence swallowed the weight of their movements. Marin whispered something Liam couldn't hear, her mouth moving with no sound at all. Panic rose in her face when she realized he couldn't hear her. Liam leaned close and mouthed that she had to stay with him. Ahead, the path opened into a small pocket of clearing. In the center sat something metallic, half buried in pine needles. Liam approached slowly, recognizing the scratched plastic before he even touched it. Their old camp camcorder. The one they left zipped inside the tent. Marin shook her head, pointing out the torn strap and shattered viewfinder. Someone, or something, had ripped it open. Liam picked it up, turning it toward him. The red record light blinked once, even though the battery compartment hung open and empty. Liam set the broken camcorder on the ground and stepped back as the blinking light faded into the silence. Marin whispered that this wasn't the Watcher's doing. The creature's camera had been small and old, not their modern one. Something else had gotten inside their tent. Liam replayed every moment of their trip in his head, realizing they'd left the camp unattended for nearly an hour earlier that day, long enough for someone, or something, to search through their things. Marin pointed to the trees surrounding them, whispering that the silence wasn't spreading randomly. It was moving, closing in. The edges of the clearing darkened first, swallowing color before swallowing shape. Not! Liam grabbed Marin's hand and pulled her back toward the trail, but the shadows moved faster, crawling across the ground like ink poured over soil. Only one path stayed clear. The narrow opening behind them. They ran again, not caring about noise or direction, just pushing through until the trail widened into another clearing. But the silence followed. Liam tried shouting Marin's name, but his voice died in his throat, like the air refused to carry it. Marin stopped suddenly, pointing to the ground ahead. A circle of dirt had been cleared in the center of the clearing, smooth and perfect, as if swept by invisible hands. At the center lay another object. Liam's stomach tightened when he recognized it. His drone. The one he'd packed away. Completely undamaged. Except for one thing. Someone had peeled off the protective lens cover and placed it neatly beside the drone as if offering it back to him. Marin grabbed his sleeve, urging him not to touch it, but Liam leaned closer. The drone's tiny camera stared straight up at them, reflecting their faces like an unblinking eye. The silent world held its breath as Liam reached for the drone. The moment his fingers touched the frame, every tree in the clearing shuddered at once, bending slightly inward, like something massive had brushed past them. Marin yanked him back, shaking her head violently, but Liam had already seen it. The tiny light on the drone had turned on, not blinking, just steady. Recording. He flipped it over, expecting to find the battery missing like the camcorder, but it was fully intact. Powered. Running. Marin scanned the tree line, her eyes locked on a point where the shadows trembled deeper than the rest. Something was standing just beyond the limit of sight, holding still, waiting for them to notice. Liam whispered that they weren't alone in the clearing. Marin squeezed his hand with a trembling grip. The silence pressed tighter around them, like the forest itself was holding them in place for whatever was about to step forward. Nee! The trembling in the trees didn't stop. It only grew sharper, like something brushing each trunk in a slow sweep. Maren whispered that they had to leave the drone behind, but the steady light wouldn't let Liam look away. Then a shape appeared at the far edge of the clearing. The Watcher stepped out from between the pines, its body angled low, almost crouched, as if trying not to scare them. It didn't raise its camcorder this time. It held it down at its side, switching the lens toward the dark patch of trees they had been staring at. The message was clear, not them. Look there. Liam grabbed Maren's hand and backed away as the creature tilted its head sharply, repeating that same urgent motion from earlier. A soft click came from deep in the woods. The same rhythm, but lower now, heavier, like something responding to the Watcher's signal. The creature lifted its free hand, not in mimicry, but in warning. The Watcher took one step toward them, slow and deliberate, then stopped as if testing the ground. Liam noticed something new. Its movements weren't smooth anymore. They were tense, jittery. The creature kept glancing back at the dark area behind it, the place where the trees swayed without wind. Maren whispered that it wanted them to run, but Liam didn't move. Something inside him needed to understand why the Watcher was helping. The creature raised its camcorder at last, but not to film them. It pointed the lens toward the woods again and tapped the side with two long fingers. A faint burst of static played from the tiny speaker. Not sound exactly, just a glitch of noise that broke through the silence for a split second. The forest reacted immediately. The trembling stopped. The shadows froze, as if something inside the darkness had heard the signal and was waiting for the next move. The static faded, and for a moment the entire forest felt suspended, like time itself had paused. The Watcher stepped backward again, then pointed at the ground between them. Liam crouched slowly, unsure if he understood. That's when he saw them, shallow grooves drawn in the dirt, etched in a pattern that looked almost deliberate. 3 straight lines, a gap, 3 more. Maren whispered that she'd seen marks like that earlier near the trail, hidden under leaves. Liam felt a chill creep into his spine. The Watcher wanted them to recognize something? A path? A warning? Or a count? The creature tapped its camcorder again, softer this time, and the distant forest answered with a faint, echoing click. But this one was different. It wasn't coming from the hidden ones. It was behind them. Something had circled around without making a sound. Without making a sound. They spun around, but nothing stood on the trail behind them. Only still trees and a wall of thick dark beyond the reach of their fading light. Liam whispered that they had to trust the Watcher now, even if it felt impossible. Maren nodded, her breathing shallow but steady. The Watcher shifted closer, its motions no longer mimicking, no longer studying, just guiding. It pointed down the trail, then tapped its chest with one long hand. A gesture Liam had never seen it use before. He understood anyway. Follow me. The creature moved ahead with small, cautious steps, glancing back to make sure they stayed close. The forest didn't tremble this time. It leaned. Every trunk, every branch, bending slightly toward the Watcher's path like they recognized the creature's presence. But the farther they walked, the stronger the silence became, tightening around them like a closing grip. The path narrowed until Liam and Maren had to walk single file. The Watcher paused at the edge of another clearing, raising its hand again, not to warn this time, but to prepare them. The silence was still thick, but beneath it, Liam sensed motion, like a slow current moving through the trees. Maren clutched his jacket, whispering that she felt watched, but not by the Watcher. By something higher. Deeper. The creature lifted its camcorder one last time and pointed up toward the canopy. Liam followed its gesture. Something shifted above them, far overhead. Not a shape, not a person. A distortion like the branches themselves were bending around invisible weight. The Watcher looked back at Liam and Maren, holding perfectly still, waiting for their reaction. The message was clear now. The real danger had been above them the entire time. The canopy above them shifted again, and this time the branches bowed so hard, Liam heard the wood strain even through the silence. Moran grabbed his sleeve, shaking as she pointed upward. The distortion moved along the treetops, gliding from trunk to trunk without sound, like weight drifting across water. The watcher stepped back from them, lowering its camcorder and raising both hands as if telling them to stay down. Liam crouched instinctively, pulling Marin with him. Something heavy slid across the leaves above, slow and deliberate. Then, a broken bit of bark fell at Liam's feet. He looked up in time to see the shape pass between two thick branches, an outline with no clear edges, bending light around itself. Moran buried her face against his arm, whispering that it was hunting, not watching. The watcher turned sharply toward the sound, body tight, ready to move. Liam didn't know if it planned to run or shield them. But whatever was above them was finally descending. The force overhead swept forward, dragging a wave of bending branches toward the far side of the clearing. The watcher darted ahead suddenly, moving faster than before, turning back to ensure Liam and Naren follow. Liam grabbed Marin's hand and sprinted after it, ducking low as another ripple of distortion pushed air down around them. The silence broke for a split second, the faintest rush of wind as something massive crossed through the canopy. Leaves swirled and then froze midair as the quiet slammed back into place. Marin stumbled, and Liam hauled her upright, pushing her ahead. The watcher reached the far edge of the clearing and lifted its camcorder, aiming upward with trembling hands. A red blink pulsed, faint but steady. The distortion above them swung toward the flicker like an animal noticing a small light in the dark. The watcher held its ground. Liam realized what it was doing. It was baiting the thing away from them. The watcher stepped out into the open clearing, exposing itself fully beneath the bending branches. Liam shouted without sound for it to come back, but the creature didn't turn. It raised its camcorder high over its head, tilting it back and forth like a lure. The distortion above tightened, pulling the branches inward until they nearly snapped. Moran clutched Liam's arm, whispering for him not to move. The watcher held the camera steady, its body angled toward the forest, like it expected something worse behind the silence. Then the creature took 3 slow steps away from them, placing itself directly under the darkest part of the canopy. Liam watched its posture, tense, ready, not afraid. It knew what was coming. The branches split apart with a sharp motion as something heavy descended through the shadows, aiming straight for the watcher. Liam instinctively reached forward, even though he knew he couldn't stop it. The impact never came. Instead, the falling darkness stopped inches above the watcher, bending around it like a curtain forced off its path. The creature didn't flinch. It lowered its camcorder, stepped backward, and pointed sharply toward the trees behind Liam and Moran. A direction, a path, an escape. Liam hesitated for only a second before pulling Marin with him, sprinting through the narrow opening between the trunks. The silence grew thicker the farther they ran, clinging to their skin like humidity. Something enormous swept behind them, and the trees bowed in its wake. Liam didn't look back. He focused only on the path the watcher had shown them. Moran stumbled again, but this time Liam caught her before she hit the ground. The forest shifted around them, closing old pathways and opening new ones, as if guiding them away from whatever was tearing through the clearing. They didn't know if the watcher was alive, but its warning was clear. Keep moving. They didn't stop running until the silence thinned into a low hum, almost like static returning after a dead signal. Liam slowed only when the forest ahead opened into a tight corridor, marked by broken branches, as if something small had passed through quickly. Moran leaned against a tree, shaking, but still alert. She whispered that the watcher had chosen that spot for a reason, that it wasn't just helping them escape, it was leading them somewhere. Liam scanned the darkness behind them, expecting the distortion to burst through at any second. But nothing moved. No bending trees, no ripples of light, just stillness. Too still. Marin pointed at the ground. Shallow grooves again. The same pattern. 3 lines. A gap. 3 more. The Watcher had left them a path in the only language it could use. Liam tightened his grip on her hand and nodded. They followed the markings deeper into the forest. Unaware of what the creature had sacrificed to buy them this moment, the trail of grooves led them into a hollow where the trees thinned into crooked silhouettes. The silence finally cracked into a soft, broken hum that felt like a dying signal. Marin squeezed Liam's hand, whispering that she couldn't hear the distortion anymore. That should have comforted them. It didn't. The air felt wrong. Too still. Too expectant. Liam stepped ahead, shining the weak beam of his dying flashlight across the ground until it hit something lying between 2 roots. A camcorder. Not theirs. Not the one from their tent. The Watcher's. The handle was cracked. The lens shattered inward. Something had crushed it. Moran dropped to her knees instinctively, as if seeing a wounded animal. Liam knelt beside her, brushing dirt from the frame. The device twitched once, as if trying to power on. Then it released a faint static cough. Its last breath. Marin whispered that the Watcher must have fallen. Liam felt a tightening in his chest. The creature had bought them time. But it hadn't been enough to save itself. Liam brushed the dirt from the broken controls and pressed the playback button even though the device looked dead. The screen flickered. Once. Twice. Then a single file appeared, its timestamp matching the moment the Watcher disappeared under the collapsing branches. The video opened on chaos. Branches whipping, the forest buckling, the camcorder jostling through frantic movement. Liam and Marin leaned close as the footage steadied for a split second. The Watcher wasn't filming the creature attacking it. It was pointing the camera past the threat, toward a distant shape deeper in the woods. A dark ridge with lights flickering in a slow, mechanical pattern. Marin whispered that it looked like towers. But they were moving, rising. Liam fast-forwarded as the camera blurred wildly, then froze on a single frame. The Watcher's hand stretched outward, pointing toward the ridge like a signal, like a final message. Something bigger than the hidden ones was out there. Marin whispered that they needed to leave the forest entirely, not just escape the hidden ones. Whatever was rising behind the trees, whatever the Watcher wanted them to see, was bigger than anything they'd faced tonight. Liam shut the camcorder gently and stood, listening to the hum in the air. It had changed again. It wasn't broken anymore. It was building, gathering, like something powering up in the distance. Marin pointed to the treetops where a faint glow pulsed through the branches, lighting them from behind. Liam felt the ground tremble beneath his feet. Soft, rhythmic, too steady to be natural. He grabbed Marin's hand, pulling her toward the trail looping out of the hollow. They didn't speak. They couldn't. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath again, but not from fear. From anticipation, as if the woods knew what came next. The trail sloped upward, guiding them toward a break in the trees. For the first time, all night, Liam could see a slice of sky. Dark, heavy, trembling with distant flashes. Marin held her breath as they reached the ridge's edge and looked down into the valley below. Lights moved across the trees in long, sweeping arcs. Too smooth to be searchlights, too silent to be aircraft. They glided through the air like enormous shapes scanning the forest floor. Liam whispered that the Watcher wanted them to see this, to understand that the hidden ones were only shadows of something far larger. Marin's grip tightened as one of the sweeping lights paused, hovering over the valley as if locking onto a target. Liam pulled her back from the ridge's edge, heart hammering. They didn't know if the Watcher had led them to safety or to the truth. They moved along the ridge until the forest thinned enough for them to see the trail leading out toward the highway. The hum grew softer behind them, fading into the depth of the valley. As the sweeping lights drifted farther away, Marin exhaled for the first time in minutes and grabbed Liam's arm, pulling him into a run. They didn't stop until the trees broke open and gravel crunched under their shoes. The road. Safety. Civilization. Liam bent over, gasping, while Marin kept scanning the tree line, expecting the watcher or something worse to appear. His phone buzzed suddenly, making both of them flinch. A new video file. No timestamp, no label. They opened it together. The footage showed them standing on the road at that exact moment, viewed from behind the last tree in the shadows. The camera didn't shake. The angle didn't shake. The angle didn't move. Someone or something was still watching and still filming.